This is the plaintiff, Roberto Velasquez. He says he was hired by the plaintiff to get signatures on petitions allowing felons to vote once they're released from prison. And he was supposed to get paid based on how many signatures he generated. Well, he got 938 signatures on the petition, is owed $4,176 for all his hard work, and is suing for just that today because the defendant is trying to stiff him. This is the defendant, Stephen Drettel. He says the plaintiff tried to cheat him by getting forged signatures. That's right, those were blatant forgeries. He goes through every one of them with a fine-tooth comb, and the plaintiff was terminated because it's a federal offense to submit a forged petition. Owe him all this money? Ha! He's accused of not being a forger.
All parties, please use your right hand.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff was hired by the defendant to get signatures on a petition giving felons the right to vote, and he got stiffed. The defendant says the plaintiff's a cheat who forged signatures. It's the case of felonious voting.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Roberto Velasquez, you are suing paidpetition.com, represented here by its owner, Stephen Drettel, for $4,176 that you say they owe you for collecting petitions on their behalf and that they refuse to pay you. Tell me what's going on.
They do petitions, like casino petitions, felony petitions.
Senior petitions, felony petitions. What is your business?
We run a political
Love your
political
hair.
consulting
Hold on,
firm.
wait a minute. I hadn't soaked that in before. Do you have this hair always, or is this...
Oh, me? Oh,
Yes.
it's,
What do you
it's,
think I'm looking at? I'm looking at his hair. Whose hair did you think I was looking at?
I was wondering. No, it's, sometimes it's purple, sometimes it's blonde, sometimes it's brunette. It just depends on the mood.
Okay, and what's the relationship between you two?
She's my wife.
Yes.
Lucky man. All right, so now what? What's going on?
Well, basically, we run a political consulting firm that manages and organizing petition drives to get different issues on the ballot.
Where are you, in Florida?
We're all over the United States. We work in Florida. We work in Florida when Mr. Velasquez was working on us on 2 petitions. One was to give felons the right to vote.
And it passed.
That's correct.
As darn well it should have, because those folks had paid their dues, and it is time now to be able to vote and participate. Otherwise, we need to take the right to vote away from a bunch of other people, too, who aren't qualified to vote. But anyway, all right. So I take it that part of your job in what is in question here was getting those signatures. And that's why you called it felon petition. All right. So what happens?
This is second term. I think I worked for them in 2015, and we did some other petitions. Everything was fine. I turned in my petitions. Sometimes when you're out there and you're doing 5 petitions, getting 5 people to sign at the same time.
So what you do is you stand somewhere that's very public, like malls, and then you ask people, would you care to sign a petition in order to blah, 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 whatever the blah, blah, blah is. And then if they want to, they sign the petition.
Right.
Do you physically have something to show me, like what they sign? Do you have samples of what people would
I have
sign?
actually one we're working on now to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and this is a similar he was getting filled out.
All right, so is there a separate piece of paper for each person?
Yes. In Florida, there is.
And so if you were at a mall or wherever, and you were to hand this to me, I would fill the date and I would sign here?
The name, address.
At the top.
Oh, I have to fill out everything?
Yes.
Birthday or voter registration number, sign and date it.
Okay, so go on.
So I became good at it. I used to do sometimes 900, 700 petitions every 2
Signatures,
weeks.
not petitions.
Yeah, signatures.
Right.
And I was working fine. I mean, sometimes when you're doing like 7 people at the same time, you can't keep track of everybody. You have to take the petition, look at it, make sure they filled it out right, and then you take the petition. But sometimes people make mistakes, and you have to go after them. Hey, listen, you forgot something. And sometimes you hand them the wrong pen color.
Pen color? Why?
Yeah.
Does it have to be in a specific
Blue or
color?
black.
Has to be black?
It's got to be black, but sometimes the blue is so dark you can't tell which is darker blue. And sometimes if they make mistakes on the petition,
who?
The people who sign the petitions, they make mistakes, and I don't catch them sometimes. They catch it. They're good at it, and they don't pay me. I don't get paid for that. I just get paid for the good ones.
Okay, gotcha.
So they told me that there were petitions that they were forged. Because I
Okay.
never done that.
What did they say, that it was forged?
There's some inconsistencies on the dates and different color pens and
Is
stuff like
that
that.
what you said? Because when I read your lawsuit, that's not what it said. I thought you said they were forged, that they
Right.
accused you of forging them.
Right, right.
So who is the person who spoke to him and rejected the batch? Is that person in the courtroom? Okay.
That's me.
What was the problem?
So it's a big issue right now. Should felons have the right to vote if they've served their time?
Absolutely.
Because,
They deserve at least their born right to vote.
what are you saying? A lot of states, you can't do it.
I think they should have the right to vote. They serve their time, and
Does it matter what crime it is?
I think if they know what they're voting for, they should be able to vote.
Okay, that's simple. Going inside the courtroom.
The problem was that what he's talking about dates is there. A lot of the dates were filled in a completely different ink color. So say the entire petition's filled out by the signer in a black pen, but they forgot to put the date according to them.
Right.
But then they remembered, or he went back to them, you forgot to fill in the date. But he's claiming they grabbed a different color pen and filled in the date with like a blue pen. And the
Well,
rest of the,
I mean, where's the rule come that it has to be a black pen? Is that your rule or a state rule?
It has to be blue or black. But what was happening was when we were matching up the signatures with the dates.
One of the things you consider is, are there different ink? Because you don't want to think they're filling it in later
Exactly.
in order to get
And it
paid.
was in the same handwriting.
Exactly. But what happened was that brought it to our attention, and those would be considered purges, not forgery, because it just won't go through. Or say if they don't put their date of birth or something like that, it won't go through. That kind of caught our attention. So we started looking a little closer and lining
At this particular batch.
At this particular batch. And when we looked further into it, we spread them out across the table, and the handwriting on the dates and the signatures were matching. The signatures were they were the same person had put in
Have an
those
example.
signatures.
Is that an example of
Not
his
them,
batch?
not them. This is something I happened to get in an email that shows exactly what we're talking about, so you can see.
Shows what we're talking about, but these are batches submitted by a different party.
different
Let me see
party.
them. So I assume all you're going to show me is what
It's just the signatures.
similar handwriting
You-
looks
you
like.
can see-
right?
yeah, exactly.
Do you have a copy of what he did, or did you keep what he
No,
did?
we tried to give them back to him, but he wouldn't take them back.
several times.
Several times.
Okay,
We
now
tried
let
to
me hear
lie.
from you on that. According to you, they never gave it back to you, and
I
you feel
asked
like
for
they
the-
may have used it.
Yeah, I told him, so you're not gonna pay me if I want them back. And he said, no, we cannot give you back.
Who'd you say that to, and who answered you?
Tanya.
Did you tell him we're not allowed to give it back to you?
No. The situation with the
Is there
forging.
anything in writing between the two of you before the petition gathering?
Well, I
takes
have his
place?
contract right
Yeah,
here.
that's what I
Basically
want.
says
Yes.
in paragraph 4, subsection B, that we reserve the right not to purchase any signatures that contain forgeries.
Yep.
So you don't pay, all right, so let's go over this a second. Company reserves a right not to purchase signatures that do not meet the above stated requirements. Complete and valid signature and date signed by signer and printed name and residence thereafter black ink, completely by the signer, not the circulator. So what was the problem with his?
They were all in the same handwriting. One whole thing of
You
petitions.
mean, when you say the handwriting, you mean the handwriting that purportedly would have been filled in by the voter?
Yes.
Okay, so the signatures matched and
Yes, the
everything
dates.
matched, and then those, the entire batch was
Yes.
like that? Or you say yes, but that's not what the complaint says, so
Well, the majority of the batch was. There were others mixed in there that were different handwriting, but once it's
the whole thing's tainted
The
to
whole
you.
thing's tainted,
No,
we're just
I
tossing the
understand
whole
that.
thing out.
And do you get paid by the signature?
Yes, we
So
do.
you have every incentive to turn these in unless you legitimately really think that they're a problem, right? Like, in other words, don't they want to buy your batch? Because
course.
they make money if they buy your
Of
batch.
course.
So if they
I
reject
tried-
your batch and
right.
they've bought your batches all these other times, they want you to do well. They
Right.
want you, to go. But they can't have you do well and then have. In other words, when they decide that these are forged, that they're not legit, isn't it like really unlikely that they would do it with malice because they want you to keep working for them and making signatures, and they want to be able to use them.
But
They
I
want to
never-
keep employing you. They just would like to be able to do it and pass the laugh test.
Yeah, but the only thing they have to do is just take out the bad ones and pay you for the good ones.
No, Mr. Velasquez.
You know how long that-
No, that's not how life works. In fact, that's not how your contract works.
Well, that's what
Okay,
they
because
always-
if they're concerned about your veracity, your truthfulness, they have now a reason to suspect the entire batch, and they've got to keep some kind of quality control.
I
Because
understand
if
that.
I'm the special interest group that employs them, and I say I really want this referendum out for the public to vote on to become law because this is important to me, I'm not going to hire a company that doesn't have strict standards.
I understand
But more
that.
importantly,
Yeah.
I don't even have to determine whether there were forgeries or not, which is a good thing because you didn't keep the thing and you should have. We're going to put all that to a side a moment because what I have to decide is did they breach the contract they have with you. In the contract they have with you, it's almost like each time you bring them something, it's not that they have to pay you for what you brought them, it's that they have to decide if they want to buy it. Because you've signed a contract that says the company reserves the right not to buy your batch if they feel they're forgeries, and they felt they were forgeries.
And another thing, Judge, is all these are contracts of all the people that work with us just in Orlando, just on that campaign, and only 3 people we had to let go out of their contract for turning in forgeries, out of all those people.
It's usually not a
in the
major issue.
orientation, when they come in to start, we spend a good 10 minutes on forgeries and how it's against the law, and we don't like to press charges, we just want to let them go. But
You
it is-
should also specify in 4 that you'll reject the whole batch.
Okay.
It's just more specific.
Okay.
But I have zero problem with your policy.
Okay.
Okay.
Zero. And I think that you not only have a right, you have an obligation to do that.
Yes.
And this is a contract to buy your signatures if your signatures are acceptable. And if every 5th one looked like a forgery, your batch is not acceptable, and I find in favor of the defendants.
can I-
We're done.
Thank you.
Yes, stay.
Thank you,
Even
Ron.
deal with them.
So the plaintiff fails to prove his case. Mr. Velasquez, if you step over here, what do you think about the judge's decision?
I think she didn't listen to the whole thing.
Why not? Why do you say that?
Because she's my witness that we work hard to collect those signatures from honest, decent people. If somebody puts something wrong in there, we don't have to request ID.
How do you explain so many with the same handwriting?
They're
That's
lying.
what I'm trying to
They're
get. They got paid for them, and in the past, she gave them back to us, but now she refused. So she never gave them back to us as far
I'm
as we know.
sorry,
they
that's
got
the way
paid.
it worked out. You should have,
Thank you.
should have spoken up more. Okay?
You wouldn't let me.
All right, well, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. All right, here comes Mr. Datel. Sir,
Hi, Doug.
yeah, it's good to see you. You have a lot of people working for you, don't you? I mean, that's a lot.
Yes, it is.
They're your employees who do this. Well, he's put himself out of work as far as you're concerned, right? You won't use him again?
I didn't back then.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Congratulations. All right. Harvey?
Okay, Doug, the plaintiff was not guaranteed a salary. This was based on the defendant vetting all of this to make sure it was done. So the plaintiff did not have an automatic right to get paid.